Welcome to the Uplifters Podcast. I'm here today with Ally Bogard, and we were already just chatting away and sort of marveling at this time of year and the universe and what it means to give and receive beauty and home, which has been a big theme on this podcast accidentally or perfectly over the past year. So welcome to this conversation with us. I'm just meeting Ally. I was introduced to her by the great Elena Brower, who you've also heard on this show, a wildly inspiring woman. When we talk about an uplifter, somebody who so powerfully embodies that concept for me. And if you've been listening for a while too, you understand that each guest nominates the next guest, a woman who uplifts and inspires her and brings others along as they rise. And one of the things I love about Elena is that she is powerfully succinct, and her nomination of Ally, I think, was like 5 words. I'll try to remember it as close to verbatim as I can. I said, "Why are you nominating her?" She said, "Because she's my best friend and she's the best friend." And my little pattern brain was like, and her name is Ally, spelled like ally.
You just touched my heart at the start.
Actually, it doesn't talk about your work. So, Ally, thank you for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. It's such a sweet way to meet a new friend and just jump in the deep end. And what I can say, I can go on and on and on again about Elena Brower, but what she will always do is uplift. It is like her generosity and her uplifting is she just loves to celebrate people. And it sounds like you're the same.
There's so much to love in every human being.
Jeez. And so much to shake your head at.
So much.
Both. And
I mean, yeah, we can't do one without the other, can we?
I think to love them is to really look at the ways we shake our heads at them, myself included. I think that is the love. It's the
Yeah.
love I need, at least.
Same. And this was like one of my early realizations about as I talked to women on the show was that what we all want is true love. And that means we have to be seen as our true selves. And so the hidden self, the masked, dressed up, doll self never actually feels like love. It feels like adoration or admiration. It feels really unsteady and untrustworthy. And it's only like in the let's just dive in the deep end and be lovable and head shakeable that we're like, oh, okay, this feels like love.
You're so on point. If I was just speaking of this with a bunch of people where the parts of us that need love are the undone, but it's never what we show each other. And so what we think somebody will fall in love with us for is what somebody gets the first 6 or 7 months with. The mask and the complete and the perfect and the wound rightly together, but that everything that needs love is not that. And so then what it takes to just be so bold and courageous and expose such intensity of saying, can you love me here?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that idea that that's what needs the love.
Yeah, I think that's what never got it, or we perceived never got it. But I would sense you, like me, would imagine that is the most lovable part, where somebody is undone and manipulative and cunning and scared and trying to get such a lovable part. And also, maybe from a meta place, really built by a love for us to see that it can be an unconditional source.
Yeah. What did it feel like to hear those words from Elena?
Well, it felt like a Tuesday because in her generosity, she's one of those women that will die at peace having said everything she needs to say. If you are in her life, you know where you stand and you know how she feels. And I think that is what makes her profoundly trustworthy to so many people. They don't have to know her to know that something feels resonant because she is who she says she is. And I think, the more she's gotten into her hospice work as she trains to be a chaplain, and I don't know where you are in your relationship to the end of this life, come what may, is like how to really live having all of the conversations in real time as if we know the finite end is near, And so I think what's so beautiful about her is that I know that because she says it and she shows it. And I think I really aim to do that too. It's like, what are the conversations that I'm avoiding? and what are the things I really want people to know, and not treat them like precious china. Like, let them be Tuesday. Let them be regular conversations, both in the hard parts and the beautiful parts.
I feel like now I just want to log off and go do that.
Let, let's promise to.
Let's promise to. No, really, I'm going to commit to you that as soon as we hang up, I'm going to go and at least start the conversation that I decided to postpone when I was journaling this morning. I think it's sort of an apt conversation to workshop a little bit with this, to ground it for folks listening. This is somebody in my life who I love deeply, and yet she's complex, I'm complex, we're complex, and she's in the middle of a move. Her big move day was yesterday. And so I was like, I know I want to have this conversation to say like, hey, I feel like something's not being said. Can we talk about it? And then decide with some openness where we go from here. And as I journaled this morning, I was like, well, my mature self would say, wait for the right time. And maybe right in the middle of her move is not the time to reach out and say anything. If it feels a little distrustful, right? Because I think what you were saying is we have to trust that each person has the ability to make their own choices. And for me to decide that this isn't the right time for her to have this conversation is me deciding that for her instead of just opening the door and saying, when the time is right, I'd love to have this chat with you.
I absolutely love that as like a relational pillar. As soon as I hear myself or the people I work with be in an either or, I either tell her this morning or I delay, I always want to wonder what's the third way. And the third way always has more nuancy and subtlety to say, we are relating to each other in so many different ways and dimensions in terms of, do you have the capacity for that conversation now? Can you reach out when the time is right? And so I love what you're saying there of like, how do I tell them where I'm at and give them full permission to tell me where they are in their move or in their own avoidance, and say like, the way I want to build relationality forward is taking care of each other's capacity. I'm ready whenever you are. Let me know when the time is. And so the third path that just is clearly your relational wisdom is that'd be I have to, because I have so many deeply addictive, numbing, dissociative tendencies, I have to be so in love with and curious and in constant relationship to my avoidance, and train myself when I take a look at the last year, as I'm sure many of us do when we sit and do the review and do the hope. I can see how many things did not progress forward but moved sideways because my avoidance was just like, I'll do it when I feel like it, with a grand assumption that that will ever be true.
What are you saying to your optimistically engaging future self?
Well said. Well said. I like your mind. For me, I know this might sound, I've spent the better part of 25 years teaching people the emotional body and to validate it and the importance of it and fluency and respect, to now be at a time in my teaching career where I'm saying, like, emotions don't matter that much. How much feelings drive decisions. And I think what I'm really playing with in my own work and life is, what meditation did in an extraordinary way of coming into the main line of people's conversations, was know that, we are a thinking body, and we can choose which thoughts we think, and we can question them, and we can not go where they take us. But I think the same is true now of what's coming online with the emotional body, because we had to swing the pendulum so hard to let people's feelings matter and give them voice and just validation, to then say a lot of the things I avoid or know that it would be best done now, not hoping my future optimism can take care of. I have to override the feelings that say I don't want to or not. And so some of it for me is impulse override and letting emotions be validated but not believed. But I don't know where to stand with that.
I think for so many of us, we have so many ideas and so many dreams and so many goals and so many little sparks. How do you choose then where to really engage? Because part of I was just thinking about this moments ago. I was like, well, somebody asked me, what's your word for the year? And I was like, well, I'm not sure yet, but it's sort of shaping up to be either. less is more or big and brave. And those seem like different things. And yet they're actually the same thing, right? So to be big is inherently to do less, right? Because doing more often is scattering our energy across too many things. And it's part of actually the way I avoid is to do lots of things.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm curious what goes into your prioritization selfishly.
Well, I
I mean,
answered.
selfishly me, not your prioritization. Selfishly, that was some weird syntax.
I actually feel really, I get you already. I think I take it from a couple different approaches of first seeing not what I want, let's go there second, but knowing the consequence on our entire system of having too many open tabs and too many ideas, and the result of creating a busy and undirected nervous system that doesn't know how to complete a loop. And so we land in these kind of non-metabolized loops, and we land in kind of failure responses. And we never get to see a beginning, a middle, and an end that lets us see what we're completing in time and how to get the feedback from that and the achievement or the failure or the responsiveness. And so, first, I would put it into yours or mine or anybody listening's own kind of review of what's it costing me to have so many
Mm-hmm.
open tabs and big ideas, because it feels in the moment hopeful. But when I'm in my day to day reality and it's not directive or it's not chewable, completable, then the hope becomes just that, always a forever hope. And I don't totally know you or your past or your listeners, but there's a premise in somatic work and mostly from the Theosophical Society where the higher energies, so the ideas, the dreams, the compassion, the higher energies that exist in, I have so much hope for this year. There's a project I want to complete. They will always have to rest on and be contained by and be dependent on the lower energies in terms of what can the body sustain, and do I have the energy for that, do I have the time for that? And so I think taking that second approach to, okay, what are my ideas, which ones do I need to play through time? Is this 3 years out, but I'm treating like it's 3 days out? And am I giving myself tiny achievable completable things along the way so my nervous system can get organized and less busy in the direction of that? So for me now, I guess it's seeing the honest, sober consequence of my avoidance and my procrastination. Like I have an incredible ability to set an iCal and just move stuff along. Moving things on iCal for me should be studied. When I look and I do a sober review of like, okay, what's that costing in terms of what I want? Because my
Mm-hmm.
short-term discomfort is winning over my long-term want. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that. I want to play time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to see what, with relationship too, work too, money too, all of it. It's like, I think growing into my own life, I see so little are we dating people, we're dating nervous systems. So little are
Mm-hmm.
working as Ally, I'm working as a nervous system. And so then what I want, can I lay that over what I'm working with in time, energy, money, capacity, resources, network, on and on in this world, so that ideas from here can kind of be held in a container or cauldron or whatever is your visual that's fun. I think ideas and dreaming and visioning is so important, especially for us all right now as we just like gather something that we want to build and live for. And then the day to day effective small actions we can put to it, to me, are now gold and God. Like, what's mine now today?
As I was listening to you, I was thinking about an image of a funnel. And I think I just did something similar with a group of clients on a retreat, which is, of course, we looked at a 3-year vision. And a 3-year vision is nice and digestible because it can say, like, let me look past my everyday, my immediate context, and look out beyond the horizon a little bit to say, like, well, if I were there in 3 years, what would really delight the hell out of me? But I think actually the funnel can be even bigger than that, and to say, like, at the highest level from a values perspective, what really, really, really matters most to me? And then we go to the 3 year, because 5 years is like too far out. I don't know. Brains can't really conceive of that. The research has shown that like there is sort of a perfect threshold at 3 year, because at 5 year, we start to say like, wait, this is too improbable. I don't know enough about my future self to make any decisions. So setting that in that sort of next layer, that strata of our funnel at 3 years. And then it's like, okay, for this year. And so for me, the way I think about that then is like what I call my big rock. So I know there are these immovable structures within that. My manuscript is due in October. And then my daughter is shipping off to college, presumably in September. And so those are sort of big,
Those are
immovable
rocks.
rocks for me, right? So then it's like, okay, what is this season about? What is this week about? What is this day about? And that's why, like, as I listen to you, because you're thinking within, it's like maybe at the values strata and the 3 year strata, we're not thinking so much about our systemic capacity, but anything beyond that, we really have to get into that systems thinking. Where do I have the money, the time, the energy, the cultural capital,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
courage capital?
All of that, all
Yeah.
of it's capital and currency. And now I'm in my visuals when you're speaking of these rocks, and it makes me, the conversation I'm in with my people, it sounds like you too, is like how to build as sturdy of rock pillars or sturdy of a riverbank, because to even consider 5 years with how fast everything is moving,
Mm-hmm.
economy and technology and culture and politics and everything that is systemically what we've grown up relying on, it to even look 5 years forward, we don't have bricks on that ground.
Mm-mm.
And so I think to create really strong riverbanks now in nervous system capacity, in community, in values, in rocks, to say like, what's the bank so that I can flow? The part of me that knows how to meet obstacles with resilience, or the infinite part of me that does know how to figure things out when I'm in the moment of them. Like, so that part can be water, and we're not trying to make rocks out of the things that are really so in flux right now.
So what are you seeing right now in the people that you spend your time teaching and guiding?
I see a hunger for updated forms of nourishment. I think
Mm.
there's a growing intolerance to be nourished in false ways and shallow ways, both in the ways people work, in the way they consume, in the conversations they're in. And, in some lines of work, we'd call that somebody acknowledging where there's obsolete nourishment. So a younger part of them might still be trying to people please or work as a martyr. And so it used to derive a sense of nourishment for the self, for the psyche.
Mhm.
And now the discomfort or the liminal jump between what was that and what am I becoming,
Mhm.
what I see as the dominant theme is people in kind of an in-between space of I'm not that anymore. I don't know who I'm becoming, but the bridge to get there, I want to update my nourishment. I want to update what feeds me and what I feed from,
Mhm.
because I think we've just been so inundated.
Yeah.
And at first, the novelty of all of it, whether it's dating culture or the way even our industry just sends quotes and things, and there's all these little things, but they don't nourish the gut and the body and the soul and the heart the way people I feel are hungry for. And so I see that. I see great transitions in identity. What I wanted is not what I want. I
Mhm.
do feel that is a part of a more collective thing of who knows what's happening or what's coming. I would never guess that. But I do really trust the inner call of people saying, I don't want what I did anymore. I trust is like that the question is being asked from a different place as to like, okay, what feeds you? What
Mm.
inspires you? Who do you want to work with? What problems do you want to solve? When people hit the block of like, I don't know who I am now, when I know I'm not that person, one of the most detrimental questions to ask is, well, what do you want?
Mm.
Somebody just like energetically stand in a corner between two hard walls because it's such a finite question.
Yeah.
And so to let them be more open-ended questions of how many things are fed in a life and what we contribute to in a life. So I see that. I see people want to nourish deeply. I see they're hungry for each other in deep and real ways. They're hungry for spirit. They're hungry for nature. They want to help.
Mhm.
they feel built for this time.
Hmm.
I've seen many people as heartbroken as they are motivated to be like, something in me feels built for this in whatever lens one is looking through, because look a million lenses, there's something that needs help.
And I think that's what leads to the paralysis, though. It feels like there are so many problems that need attention, and there are so many things that feel out of alignment and messy and untended. And that neglect, I think, yeah, so many of us are like, oh, I wish somebody would fix that. And the truth is, if you're an uplifter, that person is you. You're the one to engage. And as you said in the very beginning, it's like going back to this concept of avoidance versus engagement. And yet, so much of what stops us in our own engagement is, but what, but how? And so, I think part of what I'm pulling out of what you just said, going back to our terrarium image, which was clearly what we needed to be talking about today, it is, I talk a lot about renewing our KPIs in midlife and how maybe in early life, our key performance indicators were like, I found a partner, I found a house to live in, I found a stable income, right? Like we started to find these sort of things that I got a promotion, right? And I think in midlife and beyond, we start to shift those KPIs and say like, maybe I'd rather live in the middle of nowhere alone with a piece of paper than in the wrong place going for the wrong thing for me right now. And so, I think that reevaluation of what really matters to me for right now is so critical to answering this question. But I also hear you saying, how are you deciding what is going to contribute to that in a way that feels meaningful and right for right now?
Yeah. And it actually geniusly circles back to the first conversation you started of, how do you take ideas into form? I think what's creating so much paralysis in me and other people I see is because the ideas or the problems seem so big and other. And then when it goes to funnel down in your words into like something I can do in my day to day, it creates a car crash inside, the paralysis of just too big and not enough, too much and only limited capacity. And so, it's going to be a tale as old as time. What's right in front of you, who's right in front of you. And even I love your conversation of the activism of saying, I want to go towards a confronted conversation with someone I love to create more harmony. I think the digestible, small, effective action that is enough to, I think when we see big problems and we think it needs big action, I think we're playing an energetic field that doesn't let us get away with anything and doesn't miss anything. It doesn't miss a single bit of action, intent, prayer, and willingness.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that keeps coming up for me is it's all those things that are, I think of as lingerers, the ones that hang around and they come back up and again and again and again and again, and they get pushed down the calendar, as you said. And it's those things that probably most need attention. They most need love, going back to where you began, in order to unlock capacity to grow.
Yeah, I think when we kind of look at the chemical and electrical structure of the body, like and somebody wants to let something go. We know that like the body's never wanting to let something go. It wants to close an old loop. And I think the lingerers are just it saying, that like little alarm inside that says, even though you're avoiding it, I'm tending to it. You might be pretending we're over here, but some life force, some energy is going to it. And so I think I'm in a constant conversation with the people in my life of like, what does it mean to really respectfully move at the pace of our parts, to like move at the pace of our ideas and take our body with us, move at the pace of epic love but take our fear of intimacy with us, move at the pace of like I want to be big in the world but move at the pace of my fear of being exposed, and so that it starts to be more of an ecosystem of time and capacity that I think are so sacred, because that's how the body works. It works in time and capacity.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I'm thinking of the work of the Nagoski sisters as you talk about that. I don't know if you've read
Mhm.
their work, but
No, teach me about it.
it's really cool. They are scientists and researchers who did probably the most significant deep dive into how we process tiny T traumas on a daily basis. And they really explore like the need for our bodies to shake out and release any type of stress instead of simply layering and piling on those stressors. And so it's sort of the process that you describe, in essence, of let me acknowledge that this stressful thing happened, whether it was an email I read, argument, or, no matter how big or small, it is a stress on our system. And so to go and look at that stressor and say, like, oh, let me acknowledge you happened and move through it by either acknowledging it or simply like shaking our bodies to release it in some way to close that loop.
I absolutely. You'll send me any links you find fascinating.
Absolutely.
And I think when we kind of look at that closing the loop thing, each of us know in our own lives that like stressful things happen. But when they occur and we know how to do something, phone a friend, lift something up, throw something away, the body knows how to metabolize that. But because a lot of us live in the prophecy of things falling apart or imaginary stresses or avoiding a conversation because of conflict, when we're in imaginary stress and then we're just sitting in the paralysis of the stress chemicals, but the body and the system doesn't get to get help, phone a friend, light a fire, stomp around. I think taking a little bit of an inventory of how many fake stressors am I contributing to in my own life, and how much does something have to take the load?
You mean like putting arbitrary time limits on things?
I mean, like imagining you're mad at me. I'm like imagining I think all of us have imaginary stressors of what we think is going to happen when it all falls apart, or when people don't like what we say or what we do, or they're going to leave me, or the job isn't going to work out. When they leave me, I'll know how to grieve and fight and talk up for myself and have a conversation and call a therapist or a friend. But the thought of maybe they'll leave me makes my mind run and my body paralyze in the stress hormones that are just like, I don't know what to do with the fake stress.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people are like, when they finally left, it was easy. I could do something. And so I think for the little T traumas and what you were saying about the Nagoski sisters, for anyone listening, to like the way, like our system does not love epiphanies. It loves like small, consistent action of things it can complete over time, mundane, boring things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you this morning, I'm going to call you. I'm going to say where I'm at. I'm going to tell you, take your time. There's a completed loop. And so then you're not in the fake stress of imagining what they say, having the fake conversation back and forth in the head. And I love a closed tab. But when you
Same.
look at my computer, you wouldn't think so. Love 1,000 open tabs of things I won't read or things I won't cook.
Until one day the
All the
whole thing crashes and it's like, oh, I never miss them.
It's so true. It's so true.
We talk about that in our work a lot, is queuing. And so there is a part of our optimistic brains that are like, I'm going to get to that and that and that and that. And so we line them all up and we put them all in the queue, and it does create, and there's again, a really interesting neuroscience around this tendency in humans to pile up all of those lines of obligation and see them as pressure points that we've literally put on ourselves out of some aspirational view of ourselves, this version of us that's going to be like, I'm going to sit for hours and read every Substacker's entire body of work and I'll catch up.
And then fail and then watch the cycle repeat.
Correct. And then we get overwhelmed, and so we stop. And so I think from all of this, it really is this reminder to take the tiny things and to say, like, what really matters to me right now and what can I do about it? But then also to say, like, what have I been pushing off over and over again? And how do I, in some tiny, very specific, actionable way, do something about it? Because I really think like that's the delta. It is being a leader in our own lives.
I couldn't agree more. What are you seeing as the trend in your crew? What's that keeps arising?
It was I so appreciate that question, because as I said, I recently hosted a retreat for a group of women, and I did some really cool stuff in it that I'd never done before. Because everybody signed up so early, I had this great luxury of sort of creating the journey I had always dreamed of for a retreat, which was introducing all these women to one another in advance and putting them all in a text thread and letting them kind of create community before we went away together, and taking them through guided reflections for over 2 months, sort of in preparation, so that it wasn't all kind of just to your point about, well, what do you want?
Yeah. Wow.
Which is like way too intimidating, especially like in a weird room full of strangers. And so I asked them all, what do you wish for more of in 2026? Who would you like to be in 2026? And I will tell you, there was exactly one theme.
Oh, good. Let's hear it.
It was being more of ourselves than we have been in the past. It was authenticity.
The facade is so exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's a mandatory part of the process, even where I masked up. Mandatory. Can't stop it if it's happening.
Yeah.
But how tiring it is to constantly perform an identity. How tiring it is. Hoping
And
to
it is different when we do it out of desire than out of obligation, for sure. Right? Like, I'm going to do or be this because I really genuinely choose to in this moment versus I'm doing it because I feel like I ought to, or it's right, or it's required for acceptance or love. But in your work, I'm curious how you guide others to find a level of self-acceptance and authenticity.
I don't know if I'd know how to answer it because everybody is such a maze as to where that self-acceptance and authenticity had to be subjugated. But I think anybody that knows me or has been in my teachings knows I'm a deep lover of the night. I'm a deep lover of the dark. I want the cunning and the sharp and the hard and the addicted and the impulsive. And so I think first not creating self, it's a beautiful cyclical conversation, because I'd say go back to the beginning, is not seeking love where you already have it, and starting to love, not like, love and respect the parts of us that were compensatory, that just intelligently adapted because we had no other way. And so one thing of loving the night and the dark is knowing the things that we're the most harsh with inside of ourselves and others really were birthed in the most tender way. And if we can just subside a little bit of cruelty and just go super tender with the cunning and super tender with the rage and super tender with the inauthentic, whatever is somebody's play right now, is like, I've never seen anything not alter when it's in the company of tenderness. And if that seems too hard, just genuine curiosity. So not self-accepting blindly. Like, a lot of my work has been so informed by Byron Katie's work inside of inquiry-based meditation. And our minds are too smart to just say, I love and accept myself. I want to turn my vision to what seems so unlovable and not convince myself, but run it through facts. And what evidence do I have? And where was it built? And why? And where did I learn it? And what was it protecting? And ask good questions. It's like, I don't know the last time you were in the dating culture, but like, how many times we sit there and somebody's just interesting, but not interested, nothing opens. But the moment they're like, what's up with you? Tell me, how'd you build your mind? How'd you build your life? You think that? The moment we're curious, not interrogated, things open. And I know it with the dark too. I think one amazing thing Katie always taught me was that the ego in its beloved way is just generously always giving us our material of awakening or our next growing edge. It's so generous. And it wasn't her, it was somebody at one of her programs that had kind of noticed that when they changed the way they spoke to the cruelty, so cruel was being cruel, or judgment was being judgy, or shame was being shame, that when they changed the way they spoke to it internally or externally, it was a parrot. It's a parrot. It will repeat back. So it's a mobile, flexible thing. And so I would say change the way you relate to that which is unacceptable, unlovable. How do you relate to it? Get curious, get tender, don't accept it yet. And I think people try to let go or change the channel before the system's gotten to understand that, like, what it did intelligently.
Again, sort of workshopping this a little bit, there was a thought I had at that same retreat, where I was frustrated by the fact that I didn't have a good code. And I didn't have a good coat because I had a good coat. And then I sold my good coat because it was too small. And so the story I was saying both out loud and in my head was my butt had gotten too big for my coat, which made it sound like I was doing something wrong or bad, that it was some shortcoming in me, that my body had changed and no longer fit inside the coat it once did. I was like, all right, women, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start telling this story differently because I act like this image of like, this is going to be my big era. I'm done playing small. I'm done being small.
Back to big and bold.
I'm going to be big and bold and brave. And that was an act of reframe that felt really like true. It felt truer than I should be okay with my body getting bigger right now, because that was a should. It was a somebody else's value. As I listened to what you were saying about Byron Katie's work there and about the person you were studying with, I think too, what I was doing is I was trying to rush to a changed mind. I was like, I wanted to fix my inconsistency in thoughts, beliefs, and action.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. It's the same conversation again and again. It's like the perspective, the ideas has to be held in the container, or it just lives like that. It lives like a split.
Yeah.
And you know, I think you have allowance for this in your world too. Like, I don't have the definition of people, like we're everything. I'm as vain as I am unconditional and unified. And I think like not shaming the vanity, especially as somebody commits to or deepens their spiritual practice, that like to want to not only have the body conform to old beauty standards, but to want to know how it feels inside, but also to get to admit I have vanity and it still hurts me. And like to not reframe out of that, but let the vanity have a seat at the table. I don't know if we'll ever not be that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exactly the challenge, is to accept and embrace those things and then see what happens instead of trying to. There's something called the writing reflex in psychology. And mostly when we talk about it, we're talking about our desire to help people, oftentimes because it's so clear to us from the outside what would work. And so we have this desire out of love and purpose and meaning to say, like, let me help you. Let me tell you how to do this. And of course, it creates incredible resistance in the person that advice is being aimed at, because we know ourselves best. But we do that with ourselves. And I think that's what I was doing. And I'm only realizing that as we talk, that I was writing, reflexing myself.
Wow. And then it's so full circle. You have such a beautiful cyclical mind in that, like, it goes back even to your friend's conversation this morning of asking permission, you know? And so like, hey, I've got some perspective. Do you want it?
Yeah.
Hey, vanity, I've got something for you. You ready for it? No, I'm just thinking my butt is too big. Leave me alone. Okay, cool. Vanity, you get to come along too. You get
Yeah.
to also say, no, I don't want to be talked out of this yet. I just want to be bummed.
Yeah. Pardon the pun. That was the best pun ever.
So, and you know, I think in the depth of what you share, it's like it's not only so deeply relatable and personal. And raising teen daughters, you want to double down. Like, I've never met a person, but mostly women that mother, that don't want to change things in themselves for their daughters. Like, I have so many women that come to me that say, like, I really want to work on my self-esteem so my daughter doesn't get it. And I love that, because we're tribal. And to then say, you know, I want to because I want to. And then to know that, like, you also, each of us that hold a piece of like the collective part of what it is to be a person, a woman, whatever gender, that's like, we have really intense beauty standards inherited at every level.
Yeah.
And I am that too. And so I think it's just a beautiful tenderness to get to a perspective, but also to just say, I don't want my butt this big for this coat.
Yeah. I
Like,
did get a new coat.
yeah. And then you got a new coat. Because like, my butt's too big for this coat, a very reductive turnaround. It's too small for my butt. It's the coat's fault.
Coat's fault. Exactly. My children are so wise. They often say, they're like, Mom, you get the clothes to fit the body, not the body to fit the clothes. I'm like,
Kids,
exactly.
kids.
Exactly what I meant, but don't believe really deep in my soul, and I'm not comfortable with my inconsistency on that. And yet I feel like so grateful to myself and to you to be having this conversation right now, because I feel like I've got this little time capsule now that I can come back to this in a quarter and a year and say, like, where am I with that now? And I can do the work to sit down and reflect on these things. And for folks listening to sort of ground this into the practicality and get it out of my own stories. Part of this is in the power of reflection. And I write every day 3 pages first thing in the morning while I have my morning coffee. And it sometimes devolves into like, oh, what's most important for today and setting my priorities in terms of what work I'm going to do. I maybe think about the relational challenges I'm having or whatever, worries with other people or with myself or things that felt like a little ick in the past 24 hours. But whatever it is a conversation. And I do think like on the heels of this, I'm going to consciously reflect on this is this is something that still feels inconsistent. And how might I invite in all of my perspectives instead of trying to like bully and reframe and mask with the thing that feels good and right, the thing I should believe, but just don't yet. So I really appreciate that.
And I think you sound like somebody that is this and teaches this and parents this of like insight without action sucks.
Yeah.
You know, like you go to your lover or whoever, your kid, and you're like, hey, can you tell me what's up, how you feel, how I treat you? And they give you insight and you don't change.
Yeah.
I think we run the risk of that because when I hear the trend that you're seeing of people wanting to be more themselves and the trend I'm seeing of people wanting deeper nourishment, it's the same thing. It's like, I want what I say and what I do to be the same. I want who I think I am and who I am to be the same. And so it's such a same conversation of integrity, of like insight to action. What do I know that I can do? What do I know that I can do? So letting any reflection be held in action. Okay. Now what? Now? Later? Yeah.
Well, and I think often if it's getting punted down the calendar, mentally or physically, right, on the actual calendar, it is usually because we haven't figured out the what can I do?
Totally. I used to beat myself up so hard. I've taught for a long time and I taught trainings and kind of big lecture style formats. And I used to beat myself up so hard because I would procrastinate preparation. It'd be the night before, and the whole time I was in like self disregard and shame. And then it took, a solid 10 years of always showing up to the moment that the moment was. Just like trusting my system so much that the things I called procrastination, I didn't have the information. And so I have a little like amendment to the first conversation I said about moving things on my calendar is I also really trust it. Like we know what to do when it's time to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's that. And it's like distinguishing between that which is avoidance and that which is preparation. So not having the information is that may be part of our preparation, right? Like I'm not going to nail anything down until I know what I'm building. Right. And I'm going to let this other information in. That is not procrastination. The avoidance is procrastination.
Absolutely. And having a finite end to that, like whether it was your retreat, I had 2 months, or whether it's like, okay, I'll let myself do this for a week. The mind needs a finite line or else it just feels like eternal.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like too many open tabs.
Totally.
This has been so wonderful to talk to you. I will include in the links some information on Byron Katie and the work, which I find super interesting. We should just do a whole episode on the work.
Absolutely.
And it was what I kind of thought we would talk about because I knew you were into it. And then we went somewhere else. So,
We went so many places, but
exactly.
you're such a wonderful conversation. And thank you so much for taking Elena's lead. It's such a beautiful mind you have.
Thank you. It's so lovely to spend time with you. Who would you like to nominate for the show?
Well, the best part about my life is I have like 100 people I could say to you, but it's interesting. I had written you a very good friend of mine, Vanessa Cornell, and the same thing. It's not about her work accomplishments as much as it is as a mother of 5 teenagers. Whenever I'm there, every teen wants to hang out with her. And not from the place of like she's their friend, in that weird way, but I think there are really important conversations that are happening with our teens and with people that are not in concept. They're in like not theory, they're real life what's happening and how to do it in a way that respects their process and creates a magnetism to how they want to be around rather than how they have to individuate and repel. So I think and she's a great mind. You'll have so much fun with it.
Wow, I can't wait to meet her. As uplifters, we love to uplift other uplifters. How can we support you and your mission?
I think just this conversation is great. I'll obviously give you links and tabs, and I always have things, in perpetuity and also live if people want to come study inquiry or nervous system somatic regulation, or just how to make the mind, the emotion, and the spirit get on the same page. It's the broader band of both my work and Elena's work has always been yoga, but the way it's distilled in, the industry and in us, for me is in a real conversation of, I know we're built for this time, and I know we need our systems to have the proper support to come with us for some of the big ideas that are happening. So that's a lot of my work this year, is just how to study the container, how to right the ship, how to shore up, how to build the bank, set the rocks, like container. But I'll send you all links, and I'll look forward to your other episodes.
It's been so wonderful to meet you, Ally. Thank you
so much. What a pleasure.
Thanks for watching the Uplifters Podcast. If this inspired you, hit subscribe and tap the bell to stay uplifted. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a little lift today. Big love.
Painted water sunshine with rosemary and thyme. Dwell in the perplexing, though you find it vexing. Toss a star and hover, be your own best lover. Relish in a new prime, plant a tree in springtime. Dance with idle hindsight, bring the sun to twilight.